Hey, everybody, this is Anne Marie, Ball Girl Will Travel, going live today. Hi, hi, hi. Um, so I'm Anne Marie, Ball Girl Will Travel, and I like to talk about solo travel as self-care. I encourage women, especially Black women over 40, and especially those, particularly those in our 50s, to solo travel for self-care. I really encourage us to stop waiting for other people, book the flight, go on the trip. And today I decided to talk a little bit about lessons that I've learned since I started solo traveling um, in my 50s. I went on my first solo trip when I was 49 years old. And so I am not someone who's been, jet setting around since I was in my 20s. I actually started traveling, like intentionally traveling in my 40s, and then went on my first like intentional solo trip. I'd done some other solo trips before that, but it was for work. I used to work in international development, and so I had been sent on trips where, I would travel places on my own, but I would always also be meeting up with other people a lot of times. But then I decided to take a solo trip. And the first place I went for a solo trip was Australia, New Zealand, and Bali. I'm a go big or go home kind of person. So I did my first solo trip was not, you know, to a bed and breakfast across town. It was a 20 plus hour flight to Australia, a place I had wanted to go ever since I was a child. Um, and it was a life changing experience, especially Bali. I absolutely loved it. And so once I did that, then I was like, I want to do this all the time. And so I started making lists of places that I wanted to go. And I started intentionally going there. I had a full time job, but I still made the time for it. The second place that I decided every year for New Year's, I wanted to go somewhere by myself that I had never been. So the next year I did Thailand for 2 weeks. And then unfortunately, COVID happened. And so I couldn't keep up the New Year's tradition, but then I started going other places. And during that time, I also moved abroad. I now live in Mexico and I travel around the world from there. And I think I'm going to hit country 40 before the end of this year. I'm very bad about keeping track of all the different places that I've been. But I think I'm going to hit country 40 before the end of this year. But I wanted to talk today a little bit about solo travel and why I think it's very important for us to do it, and what I have learned from going on solo travel, and why I think it's something that we should all do. And I was inspired to write to like do this and to write a blog post about this because one of the people I follow on Instagram, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't want anybody to like go over there and disagree with her or anything. I really believe people have a right to express their own opinions on social media and that I don't have to agree with everything that they said. And I didn't disagree with the overarching point of what she was saying about solo travel because she was talking about it from her perspective as a 26-year-old girl and what she had learned, a 26-year-old woman, and what she had learned. Thank you so much. Shula Sharon, hello, first of all, and thanks for the compliment. She said that blue on you looks so nice. Thank you. She was saying, what she had learned from solo travel as a 26-year-old woman. And as I was reading what she was saying, some of the things she said really resonated with me, but a lot of it did not. But I thought to myself, I've learned a lot of things as a person who started solo traveling in my almost 50 years old, but the things that I've learned are a little different than what she learned, and I wanted to share those things because I always often feel, and I often hear people say that they feel traveling is for people who are young, or you have to be very old. There's always this idea that either you should do it when you're young or you should do it when you retire. And I am the school of thought is that it's never too late to start. It's never too early to start, and that you should do it all your life. I do not think that you should wait until you hit, 65 or 60 or whatever the number is that people think you're allowed to retire at now in a capitalist society, and then think that you're going to be able to travel, because by then you don't know what your health situation is going to be. You don't even know if you're going to be alive. The assumption that you're going to be alive to do these things, I always think is a bad assumption. So I really believe that you live for now and you do the things that you want to do as immediately as you possibly can. Um, Hi, blessed and highly favored. How are you? Hi, Marcia. I'm great. Oh, you're watching me on my TV. I feel very special. I don't even know how to do that. Um, one of the first things the things that I learned from being, and I wrote these down, so I'm going to read some of them because I didn't set them to memory. But one of the first lessons I want to talk about is what I just said: is that it's never too late to start traveling by yourself. And I've written lots of blog posts, and I talk a lot in my Facebook group. If you're not a member, you should join. If you're a Black woman over 40. Um, I talk a lot about places I think, are good places to go your first time solo traveling, things to think about from a personal safety perspective, how to plan for your first trip. I have blog posts on my website, allgirlwilltravel.com, about all those things. But I think the overarching lesson that I have learned so far is that it's never too late to start. I didn't really start intentionally till I was 49. So, if you follow a lot of people on social media, a lot of them are in their 20s and 30s. Many of them are travel agents, even though they might not disclose to you that they are. I mean, I just became a travel agent this year, but mainly I make travels for myself, and I do small group meetups where I meet up with people in other countries. But I disclose that I'm very straightforward about that. Not everybody online is, so you see people flying around, and you're wondering how they do it and how they can afford it. And a lot of them are travel agents. Some of them are flight attendants. Especially the younger ones. And then some of them are legitimately digital nomads who are living in other countries and using that opportunity to remote work and travel. But everyone doesn't really tell people how they do it. So it makes it look like it's something that's really hard and that is inaccessible, and it isn't. There's no right way to solo travel, is the second thing that I would say. So, what one person wants to do, if some people want to live out of a backpack and sleep in a hostel and sleep in a campsite. I recently read something about some guy taking the overnight bus so he wouldn't have to pay for a hotel and sleep and staying up because he couldn't sleep on the bus for 18 hours. I think that kind of stuff is crazy. I do not believe that solo travel should be an endurance test, a test of how uncomfortable you can be and how much self-denial you can engage in. So I don't want people to see those things on social media and think that if they're not willing to live on a shoestring, they can't travel. They can't solo travel, because you still can. Most of us are not independently wealthy, but you can save for trips. You can do budgets for trips. Every trip, I don't know of anyone that goes on a trip and has no budget. Even people who are very wealthy have budgets. So you have a budget, you live within your budget, but it doesn't mean you have to stay in a hostel. If that's not something you want to do, then don't do it. I've never stayed in a hostel in my life. Don't plan to, right? Because that's just not my thing. I don't want to wake up in the morning and see, 8 or 9 of the people in the room that I don't know with me. I don't want to do that. Even when I do group trips, I don't share rooms with people ordinarily. So that's just not something I would want to do. But I don't think it's wrong to do it. I just don't want people to feel like if they want to stay within a budget, they have to go stay at a hostel or at a campsite or be in an RV, or lots of things that you see people doing. Those are those people's choices. And when you're younger, you may have a higher tolerance where your comfort is concerned. And some of us, as we get older, comfort becomes more important. Hi, Danica. Hi, Bonnie. And so you don't want to do those things, and you don't have to do those things in order to engage in solo travel and to enjoy it. I've shared before some of the things that I do to control the cost of my trips. Um, I'm very big on booking based on sales and booking based on the deal and not the destination. So if I see a good deal, I'll book a trip. Like, I wasn't planning to go to Greece this year, but I saw a good ticket and I had the points. And so I used some points and got a ticket on sale. And that's the only reason why I'm going to Greece this year. I really wasn't, it's not one of the trips that I planned, but I leave myself open. And because I work for myself, I have more flexibility. But even if you have a job, you can still do the same thing, right? Because you can go on trips at any time of year. It doesn't have to be summer. I actually recommend not traveling to Europe specifically in the summertime. So again, you've got to make it work for you and what your life is. And don't think that because you have a 9 to 5, because you're not in your 30s and a digital nomad, you can't travel. You actually can. and you can go wherever you want. You just have to plan. Like I said, I went all the way to Australia and I had a full-time job, right? So I worked the leave that I had, and I saved my leave up, and I took 3 weeks off from work, and I went to Australia, and I went to New Zealand, and I went to Bali. So don't think that because you don't you have a 9 to 5, you can't do what you actually can. You may not be able to travel as often as I do, or other people that you may follow online do, but it doesn't mean that you can't, and it doesn't mean that you can't solo travel. So solo travel to me is more about a mindset than anything else. And to me, it's really about going somewhere and spending time with yourself. And that's what I enjoy about it. I think it's one of the best ways to get to know yourself is to spend time traveling and exploring another country and meeting new people and just spending time with you in your downtime. You can do things, and I do tours, and I always meet people and make friends when I go on solo trips. But I also spend a lot of time on my own, and I actually enjoy it. I think you can enjoy yourself as a solo traveler being an extrovert. I can think you can enjoy yourself as a solo traveler being an introvert, as I am. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I took the test. That's what they said. They said I was right on the line. So I'm one of those people who can be extroverted, but I also, people take energy away from me. So at the end of the day, especially, I got to spend time by myself. So solo traveling really works for me because of my personality type, but you can also be an extrovert and solo travel, right? So I don't want people to feel like it has to be a certain way. You make it work however you make it work for you. But the main thing for me is I don't wait for other people to do things. I have nothing against group trips. I actually enjoy them if they're structured the way that I need them to be, which is why I started planning my own trips for people because I'm very particular about what kind of experience I want to have on group trips. I don't do the whole strip down budget stuff. I see people doing those kinds of trips, and I think for people who want to, be in a hostel with other group of people or do, a 2-star hotel, that's fine, but that's not my kind of experience. I'm very much about, I try to spend as little money as possible if I can to get somewhere. But when I get where I'm going, I want to be comfortable. Whether it's in an Airbnb or in a hotel, if it's an Airbnb, I want an Airbnb that's walkable, that has a view if possible, that's, nice. I want air conditioning. I don't want to see no bugs. I want screens on the windows. I need to be comfortable. So I will pay to be comfortable. So I try to save money to get where I'm going. And on things like tours and experiences and things like that, I don't like to spend a lot of money on those kinds of things. But I'm very particular about where I lay my head. Y'all, if you follow me, you have heard me say this many times. So I think you have to pick where you want to spend your money, what you want to spend your money on, but don't let money be a reason that you don't solo travel. Anyone that tells me it's because of money is because they just don't want to do it, because it's not about money. It's about wanting to do something and not allowing fear, because I don't believe it's not that you're not afraid, it's that you don't allow the fear to keep you sitting and waiting for other people to get their money together, to get their lives together, to go to the places that you want to go. Right. So the other thing that I would say that I've learned is, the first thing, as I said, is it's never too late to start. And the other thing is, and as I said, solo travel doesn't have to be uncomfortable. As I said, I don't believe that it should be about compromising your comfort and roughing it if you don't want to. You just need to be flexible and a little bit opportunistic about finding discounts. The third thing I would say is you'll find your tribe, right? One of the best things to me about solo traveling is some of the relationships that I have developed with people that I am still really close to that I would have never met if I had not been somewhere in the world by myself, and they were there on their own as well. I love to do tours. Walking tours, food tours are a new favorite of mine. Boat tours. I've had balls going on boats with people recently. I'm getting ready to do one when I go to Greece that I'm really excited about. I love a good boat tour, right? And some trips I won't do anything else and just go on a boat if that's what I want to do, because I budget my money. So, but walking tours, you can find free walking tours in many cities. There are people that do them for free, and you just give them a little tip at the end. And for food tours are usually not super expensive. I usually don't spend more than maybe $25, $30 USD to do a food tour, and that's usually including all the food and everything. So I love doing food tours. I love doing walking tours, and I love getting on a boat. I love a good boat tour excursion. And you will meet people that way. And you will meet people who are your people, right? I really believe that family is not always the people that you're born into. They're the people often that you choose and that choose you. And so I love meeting people who love to travel like me, who love to explore places, who love food. That's like a big one for me. And so one of the great things about solo traveling is that you will find your people in unexpected places. You'll find your people and you'll be happy that you did it because of that. Moving abroad and solo traveling has introduced really fabulous, wonderful, amazing people in my life that I would not have if I were not living abroad and if I didn't travel as much as I do. So that to me is one of the really great benefits that I have found from solo traveling. And then the other thing is the number one thing that I've learned, especially in the area of personal safety, because I know that's one of the biggest reasons that women give for why they don't travel by themselves. They're afraid that somebody's going to snatch them off the street or in a hotel, all things that are very unlikely to happen, I might add, and are even less likely to happen to women over 45, especially those of us in our 50s. Something else might happen, but not really that. I'm not saying it never happens, but I'm saying the likelihood is very low. But I have found that listening to my intuition and paying attention, what I call, security people call it situational awareness, which is really a type of, paying attention and listening and following your gut is the number one thing to keep you safe. In almost any, and this is not just for travel, it's like in almost every situation. There's always a flash moment where your mind says yes or no to something. And sometimes we will ignore it and do the thing anyway. And I've learned to listen, whether it's saying yes or saying no. I've learned to listen, especially when I'm by myself on trips, that if my mind says, don't go, I'm not going. I remember supposing to meet someone for a first date at a bar, and I just didn't go. And I can't tell you to this day exactly why I didn't go. There was just a feeling that I had. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going. And I didn't go. And I don't regret it. And so I really do think that you should always follow your instincts. Follow women, especially. I think all people have intuition. I don't think women are the only ones that have it, but we definitely do have it. And so I think that one of the most important things to do in terms of planning for travel and planning for your own personal safety, and you should have a plan for that, is do all the things that I've written about in blog posts and I've done lives and lots of videos about, but listen to that voice inside of you. Pay attention to it. And listen, and don't drink so much that you can't hear it. Don't do things that are going to cloud your ability to hear that, right? So when you're planning for and you're on solo travel, what I found is one of the most important things is to try to do that. And it's not just about dating and those kinds of obvious things. It's things about like opening a door and looking inside of a car and having this flash thing that I don't like the way this car looks and deciding not to get into it, right? It's simple little things that happen where you just have this feeling that I don't want to do this, where you should just not do it. If in that moment, that's the feeling that you have. And the great thing about being solo is you don't have to explain it to anyone. You just decide and you just don't do it. So you're not messing with anybody else's schedule when you make a decision like that. You're just changing your own plans. You're not inconveniencing anyone else. So, you can make a plan. You get to the meeting place and you don't like the way it looks, leave. You know what I mean? You go somewhere and you just don't feel comfortable, leave. Or if you plan to do something and you Google the place and they show you a picture and you don't like what it looks like and something in your mind says, don't go, right? So that's one of the things that I really have found that I really do listen for that more, because I solo travel so much, more so than I used to before when I didn't. So that's another thing that I have learned traveling. And then the other thing that I would say is, hi, Margie, learn to ignore other people's opinions. Learn to ignore other people's opinions. That's number 5. And that's probably one of the more important ones, is that sometimes it's better to not tell people your plans than to let people get in your head and ruin your plans before you even get to them. So I jumpstart code. On my way out of here, Phyllis. Hi, Phyllis. So that's the number 5 thing I would say, is learn to ignore other people's opinions and not engage with other people's opinions. What other people think, they have every right to believe and think, but it doesn't have to be any of your business. It doesn't have to be something that you concern yourself with. And I don't even discuss my travel plans with like members of my family per se, or people. I just do what I do, and they see me on social media off somewhere. I just don't do it, because honestly, I don't care whether they think I should go to that place. I just don't. So I don't see any reason to get in conversations with people about what I'm planning to do, unless they're like-minded people who are interested in what I'm doing. So, one of the things you're going to have to overcome, especially if you're just starting to travel by yourself, is the opinions of other people. And I think the best way to overcome that is just not to discuss those things with people who are going to shit all over it, right? Because they've never been anywhere, or because they're afraid to go anywhere. And then you let that get into your head, and then you become afraid when you weren't before, right? So it's really important to, and no matter, where you are in life, there are people whose opinions matter, and it's okay for their opinion to matter. It just can't matter more than yours. I'm drinking water today because I haven't drank my amount that I'm supposed to have today, and my skin is acting up. So I'm drinking water. No wine tonight. I'm drinking water. So those are my 5 lessons that, as I was reading what the young lady was talking about, and she was talking about her experience sleeping outside and how wonderful it was, and some of the other things that she was saying from her perspective as a 26-year-old, that made solo travel really special for her, and that she had learned so much about herself, which you definitely do. But I thought about some of the things she wrote, and I thought, from my perspective as a woman who's over 50, those are not really things that I would enjoy. She talked about how much she loved staying in a hostel because all the people she got to meet. And I just, the idea of that, I could never do it. I know I wouldn't enjoy myself. And I don't put myself in situations that I know I'm not going to enjoy at this point in my life. I don't feel the need to do it. And I just thought to myself, but I'm glad she's, traveling. And regardless of how you have to do it, I'm glad you're doing it. I have a cousin who's a lot younger than I am. And she stays in hostels a lot. And I always tell her, more power to you. Whatever it takes to get you out into the world, to see the world, I'm all for it, is what I always tell her. And we're actually planning to do a trip together next year. She's a blogger as well, so that'll be fun. But we ain't staying in a hostel. I could tell you all that right now. That's not happening. But those are the 5 lessons that I would say that I've learned, that I just shared. And I'll just go over them one more time. But number 1 is, it's never too late to start. Number 2 is, you will find your tribe. 3 is, solo travel doesn't have to be and doesn't need to be uncomfortable. Number 4 is, listen to your inner voice and exercise situational awareness. And number 5 is, ignore the naysayers. Ignore the negative Nellies. Ignore the people who are going to have negative things, and don't share your plans with those people. When you come back, you could tell them where you went. You don't have to tell them. I mean, I love my late mother and I miss her very much, but my mother was afraid of a lot of things. And I stopped telling my mother when I was going on trips. I stopped telling her. I tell her when I got back where I went. I stopped telling her about my work trips, and I stopped telling her about my business trips, because she would say things that were problematic to me. So I just stopped telling her those things. I would tell my dad, because he was always supportive of my adventurous spirit and still is, bless his heart. But my mother would say things that were very negative. So I just stopped telling her, right? And so that kind of solved the problem for me. So, when I got back, if I felt like mentioning where I had been, then I would mention it then. But I wouldn't say anything before I went because I didn't want to hear anything negative. You don't really want to hear people saying negative things before you're about to get on a plane to go somewhere. So I just stopped sharing those things with her um, before I did it. And I think that's a really great, and it helped me not get annoyed with her and so on. So that's a really easy thing to do, is that you don't have to tell people what you're planning to do. You just do it. So I'd love to hear from you guys any lessons, those of you who are solo travelers, what lessons you've learned and how solo travel has enhanced your life. It has definitely enhanced mine. I think it's the best self care there is. And like I said, everyone doesn't have to be on a plane every month like I have been this year, which initially was not my plan, but that's just how it's turned out so far. But you know, maybe you only go on a trip by yourself once a year or twice a year, right? But if it's something that you want to do, definitely go for it, and don't feel like, oh, I'm 50, so it's too late, or oh, I'm too old, or oh, I gotta wait till I turn 60 before I could do it, or I gotta wait till I turn 70 and I'm retired before I can do it. One of the things that I always remember is I went to Croatia. I went to Dubrovnik. I think it was back in I want to say it was either 2018 or 2019. And I had gone to Serbia for work trip. And so I added on a trip to Dubrovnik after Serbia before I went back home. I took a trip to Croatia because it's pretty close from Serbia. And I remember going up the steps to either I was going up the stairs or down the stairs to where my Airbnb was, and my host had met me and like carried my luggage down the stairs. I think it was down the stairs he went, and when I was leaving, we were going up the stairs. But I remember seeing this couple struggling to go up and down those stairs, and those stairs were not a game. I don't know if you've been to Dubrovnik, but those stairs are not for the weak. They're really not. In the historic part of the city, it's lovely, but those stairs are not a game. And I remember just looking at them struggling, especially the older man, and thinking to myself, boy, am I glad I'm doing this place now, because I'm not sure, because my knees don't always act the way that I want them to, even at this point in my life. So who knows what they're going to be doing another 5 years. And I just remember thinking, boy, am I glad I'm doing this now, because I'm not sure I would want to do this, later in my life. As beautiful as it is there, and it really is quite beautiful. The ancient part of the city is walls and stairs and walls. And if you really want to enjoy it and really see it, and like the Game of Thrones tour and all of that stuff, is walls and stairs and walls. And it's a lot, and as we get older, the body parts start doing different things, and the knees start doing different things, and climbing up a lot of stairs is not going to be as fun as it was when you were 25, and it wasn't even fun when you were 25. So I really say, don't put off doing these things. If you have the ability to do it, then do it. 4 days in Barcelona, that sounds lovely. I've been through Barcelona, but it's a place that I would like to return to, because I feel like when I went there the last time, it was one of my first international trips, and we were so jet lagged that I don't think I got to see very much of Barcelona. Yes, Danica, don't drink too much so that you're not aware of your situational awareness. That's one of the things I always tell people. Drinking clouds the senses. I mean, alcohol literally does that. And it lowers your ability to make critical decisions, your critical decision making. And it does dim that voice in your head, right? So I really think you have to be very careful about, how much you drink when you're out and about on your own. And yes, Marjorie, you're never too old to enjoy life. It's never too early, and it's never too late. I encourage all my cousins that are young to travel. That's the first thing they ask me what I think they should be doing. I'm like, get on a plane, go somewhere, get out of America, travel, go see the world, go see what life is really about, and learn more about yourself and about the world by going on a plane. And I say that to people who are in their 40s. I say to people in their 50s. I say to anyone that I meet, I really think traveling is the key to being a well-rounded human being. And so I don't think it's ever too early, and it's definitely never too late to do it. But don't put it off. I really urge people, don't put things off. Do not assume that there's more time. The problem is we think we have more time and we don't. So if you have the ability to do something, do it. Don't wait. I solo travel because I'm not letting widowhood hold me back. I traveled to London in 2022 and recently to Montreal. Good for you, Linda Brown. I mean, that's my whole mindset. I really think that you shouldn't allow anything to stop you from doing the things that you want to do. And I think traveling is a really great way to also deal with grief. So I think a lot of times when I travel, especially when I travel to Tobago, I always spend a lot of time, thinking about my mother and the things that she didn't get to do. And a lot of the things she didn't do was because she was afraid, right? And so I really think that we should really try to do the things and go to places that we want to go, and see the things that we want to do. My first solo trip was a cruise to the Bahamas, and I loved it. I love ships and boats. That's really great. And cruises are great ways to go to lots of places. They're not, in my opinion, cruises are not great ways to see a lot of places, but they're great ways to get to a lot of places. But I think if you want to see places, you have to be very intentional when you're on a cruise ship, because it's easy to just stay on the ship and not really do a lot of things. And the excursions on some of those ships are so expensive. So there are workarounds to that. I recently advised a family member on how to, save some money and still take advantage of the stops that they were going to be in on a cruise ship to Tuscany. They were going to Florence and some other places. And so they were able to see more than they originally thought they were going to be able to see because they couldn't afford the excursions. So there are workarounds to that. But one of the issues I have with cruise ships is that there's a tendency for people to either stay on the cruise or they do the excursions and you're getting herded around like cattle and you don't really get to see the places that you really want to see. I think cruise ships are great for like the Caribbean. I've been to Bahamas on a cruise ship and it was really nice. I really, really enjoyed it, actually. I did the Disney cruise with my son and we had a really good time. But I don't recommend doing cruises to like Europe. I would never do that again. I think it's better to like go on a tour or go on a group trip if you don't want to go by yourself, or just book a cheap flight and go to Europe that way. And one of the easiest hacks for Europe is, especially if you want to go in the summer, is find the cheapest flight you can find to the continent. Never mind where it is. Just get on the continent. And once you get on the continent, you can find really cheap flights inside the continent. I actually found a flight that started at, I think, $15. It, of course, Ryanair being what it is, by the time I was finished, it was like $50 or $60 because I have a carry-on. But it still was way cheaper because I was going to be in the country, flying from Paris to Rome. So definitely, if you want to go to Europe in the summer, just find the cheap. Don't always look directly for your destination, but consider flying to the cheapest destination you can find in Europe and then going to where you actually want to go from there. And then you get to visit somewhere else besides the destination you're thinking about. Mexico after my dad died was very healing. Same. I moved to Mexico after my mother died, so I definitely relate to what you just said. I had been thinking about moving before my mother died, but when my mother died, it really did make me like undertake a serious evaluation of my life and what I wanted for the rest of my life. Yeah, cruises are a great way to discover where you want to fly to. That is a really good point, Margie, because I can honestly say I fell in love with Florence when I went on that cruise. One of the biggest positive on that cruise was the stop in Florence that I got on that. I went there, and when we were leaving, I literally said to my son, I'm coming back here on a plane. That's literally what I said to him. I'm coming back here on a plane, because a one-day tour in Florence, you can't really see anything in Florence in a day. I mean, you can have a good meal and maybe see one thing or go to the Duomo, but there's so much to do, you can't really do it in a day. So that was kind of, especially with a 12-year-old. Forget it if you're with a 12-year-old, because all you're doing is what the 12-year-old wants to do. So my son has wonderful memories of Florence, way better than my memories of Florence, because he got to see the Pinocchio store and eat a whole pizza to himself and do a bunch of stuff that he wanted, see things that he wanted to see, but I did not. They do have cruises for travelers, for solo travelers now. I think Virgin has one, and I'm not sure about Royal Caribbean. I'm not a big fan of Carnival, so I don't know what they do with Carnival. But I know Virgin Cruises has a solo one where they don't charge the single occupancy, single supplement that a lot of cruise ships charge, as well as hotels and other places. It's being a solo traveler can be a real pain, because it's almost like people want to penalize you, and tour companies penalize you for traveling by yourself. But I know I've heard good things about Virgin Cruise Lines. They're not the cheapest, but I've heard the experience is actually really good. So I'm actually thinking of looking into doing one just to see what it's like. But I don't think I want to do anything to Europe. I want to do something in the Caribbean. And then I've been looking into doing a river cruise in Europe. They have several of them where you can cruise different rivers over a certain number of days. And I'm looking into that as well, just to have a different experience. Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer said, I've only solo traveled once to Vancouver back in 2017. Looking forward to solo traveling more. Love your tips. Thank you so much. Vancouver is somewhere I haven't been that I want to go. Did you go to Banff? Is it Banff? Is it Banff? I really want to go to, I think it's Banff. I think it's in Vancouver. I keep hearing how beautiful it is, and the pictures look lovely. And I would like to go there. The problem for me is I don't like extreme heat, and I don't like extreme cold. So I'm trying to figure out the best time to go to Vancouver, because I've heard really good things about how beautiful Vancouver is, but I've not been there. And I actually have a cousin who lives in Canada, and he's also invited me to come visit. And I need to do that because he's a wonderful person, and I really want to go hang out with him. But I think he lives in the closer to Toronto area. But I do want to visit Vancouver. I've heard really good things about Vancouver. I've only been to Toronto in Canada. I haven't been to anywhere else in Canada. I have a cousin who is obsessed with Montreal. Like, she loves Montreal. So she's always telling me that I need to go to Montreal. Jumpstart Code, who has solo cruises? As far as I know for sure, Virgin does. And Ishula Sharon is saying Norwegian also has solo rooms. And you're looking for cruises that lots of people have solo cruises that you can book, but they charge you a single supplement, which is you have to pay like almost double. Like, you have to pay the fee as if two people are going to be in the room. And so you don't want to do that. You want to go with a cruise line that doesn't charge a single supplement. And I know there are a couple cruise lines, as well as inclusive resorts, who now have certain times of year where they do specials for single travelers. But I frankly think that should be the norm and not something that's special. But that's just my personal opinion, because I'm a solo traveler, so I kind of take it personally, all these single supplement fees that a lot of these companies charge single people for traveling. Or they charge us for traveling by ourselves. It really annoys me. It's like a pet peeve of mine. I get very annoyed about it. When you're trying to do tours and they list the price, and then when you put one person, they want to charge you double. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. When you went on Royal Caribbean solo, did they charge you a single supplement though? Or did they charge you like for one person? That's what I'm always curious about. Because the times that I went on cruises, I went with my son. Both times that I did it, I took my son with me. Because the first couple times I went on cruise, I really did it for him. I took him on a Disney cruise, and what was the other cruise we did? And the one Royal Caribbean where we went to, we went from Barcelona and we did a European. We went to France and Italy. So it was a double occupancy room that we had. But I mean, I just feel like so many people do solo travel that they shouldn't. charge people that. So it's good to know that Royal Caribbean, Virgin, and Norwegian, which are all really good cruise lines. I actually felt like the Royal Caribbean cruise overall was a very good experience. It was a long time ago, so I can't vouch for anything now, right? But I had a good experience, and Disney cruise was outstanding. So I had a good experience when I went on both cruises. I just didn't like feeling like we were being rushed around on the excursions. I didn't like that part. But being on the ship itself was a really great. I really enjoyed being on the ship, but I didn't enjoy as much the tours because I just felt like they were trying to like you're trying to do so many things in one day. Like we had a day where we did Pisa and Florence in one day, and I think that that was just too much. And then we had done the south of France in a day as well. And I think a lot of times they cram all these things together, they charge you a lot of money for it, but you don't get to really see the place. So you've been to the place, but you don't get to really see it. So I think it's better, in my personal opinion, to not book an excursion on the cruise ship and instead book a tour, have them pick you up at the port, and just make sure they have you back at least 2 hours before departure time. So you don't make sure that you don't get, caught in traffic or anything like that. But I think it's better to do that than to like go to Italy, for example, and try to do Pisa and Florence in the same day. It's not going to work. You'd be better off booking a Florence tour with a tour guide and having a more well-rounded experience than trying to do the excursion that they do on the ship, which they charge you lots of money to do. I would definitely like to go to Montreal. It's definitely on my list. Cruises may be better if you're going one or two places and not several ports because it does get overwhelming and there's not enough time. That's exactly what my experience was. But the onboard experience on Royal Caribbean was excellent. I will say that. The onboard experience was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. There was lots and lots to do. I was never bored. Same thing on the Disney cruise if you have like kids and stuff. I was never bored as an adult. I barely saw my child. He was gone. So they had enough activities for me as an adult that I wasn't bored on the ship because he was off doing all the things. And so I had to entertain myself, but they had lots of activities for adults and Royal Caribbean as well. So I really enjoyed that part. I just didn't enjoy the excursion experience. So you got to make sure that you deal with a tour company that has experience doing tours with people coming off ships so they understand the importance of getting you back in time. And there are companies, especially in Italy, that will do that. My relative did it and had a very good experience in Florence because I recommended it. And she did that and she had a really good experience, her and her family. And it saved them a lot of money. And they literally picked them up at the port and they got them back to the port. So they had a really good time. And they didn't feel as rushed. And it was very structured. So they knew what they were going to see. They picked what they were going to do. And then they got to go out and do it. So, yeah, I hope that this has been a good conversation for you guys. I really do feel like what we get out of solo travel is beneficial no matter what age you are when you do it. But I do think how you experience it is different based on where you are in life, your age, your experiences already, and so on. And so I really do, I appreciated the post that I read this morning because it inspired this topic for today. Because I was going to talk about something else, but then I saw it and I thought, I've learned a lot of things about solo travel and about myself by solo traveling and by starting when I started, which was, at the age of 49. And I feel like the things that you may learn from the experience when you're in your 20s and even in your 30s are going to be different. Because even what you're interested in doing entertainment wise is different. Like I was asking my cousin today, my cousin is a brand marketing expert. She's brilliant. And we were having a conversation about some branding stuff that she's helping me with. And I remembered that she had gone to university in London. So I was asking her about, what she did for fun, in London. And she reminded me, it was hilarious because I'm asking her about rooftop bars and, high tea and such. And she said to me, now, I need you to remember that when I was in London, I was 21 and 22 years old. I didn't have any money to do any of those kinds of things, right? So she's like, the stuff I did then is probably not things that you will necessarily enjoy, and probably not things I will necessarily enjoy at this point. And so that was a really good reminder that, what you enjoy and what you want to do has a lot to do with where you are in life. So there's not really a bad answer or a wrong answer, a right answer to what are the takeaways that you get from solo traveling. Why is solo travel important thing to do? What your answer is going to be to that question, and the things that you may have learned are going to be based on where you are in your life and your age, right? So I think I have come up with a good list of things for me to do in London. I'm going to be in London soon, and I'm not going to be there for a long time, but I'm gonna be there for a good time. So I wanted to make sure I planned my time out so I get the most out of the experience. And I think I have put together some interesting things that I'm going to do while I'm there. Thank you. Toe Control says she loves my glasses. Thank you. So, what one person would love, what I'm going to do for a day in London, it would be different than what someone would do when they're 25. And that's fine. Or what someone would do when they're 45. Right? So that's really important, even though I do remember being in London for the World Cup back in, I can't remember when that was. It was either 2017 or 2018. And we went to a day party, me and a friend that I actually met on a trip. I met her in Croatia. And I was, late 40s. She was in her late mid 20s. I think she's in her 30s now. She was young. She was just finishing graduate school. And we met in Croatia and kept in touch. And I haven't spoken to her recently. We ended up spending a lot of time. She hung out a lot of times. She came to DC. I took her to lunch and stuff like that. And we met up in London because she was finishing her graduate program in London. And we went to this day party, and I had a ball. Big fun. It's big fun. Even I had to keep, this one 20-year-old that wouldn't leave me alone. I had to keep telling him that he was almost the same age of my son, and I was going to need him to calm down. And no, I was not going to give him my phone number, but it was a lot of fun. We were watching the final game. I think it was 2018. I think it was France and some other country. France won. So there were a lot of French people there, France, Irish, and of course Brits. And fun. They do like their spirits. So we had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But I don't think I'll be doing any day parties on this trip. May I ask, how was your experience in New Zealand? Is Shula Sharon? Oh, I loved New Zealand. New Zealand's lovely. I remember I went to Wellington, and I went to, what's the capital of New Zealand? I always forget the name of that place. I started there, and then I went to Wellington, and I went to Rotorua. I enjoyed the capital the least. I loved Wellington. I loved Rotorua. I really highly recommend Rotorua. Rotorua is a place that has a large indigenous Maori population. And I don't think it was Christchurch. Was it Christchurch that I was in? Or was it Queenstown? I'll have to look it up. But whatever the capital is, I flew into the capital, to the main airport there. And then I took a tour. Went with a tour. They picked me up from my hotel, and we went to, maybe it is Christchurch. And then we went to, we started in one point and ended up in Rotorua. And then from Rotorua, I flew to Wellington, and I loved Wellington. Wellington is beautiful. I actually felt like I could live here if it wasn't so far away. That's what I thought of Wellington. I really liked Wellington a lot. And Rotorua. I highly recommend, if you go to New Zealand, to make the time to go to Rotorua, visit the Maori village. They have really beautiful hot springs there. I really liked Rotorua a lot, and I really enjoyed Wellington. I don't think I enjoyed Christchurch. Wellington isn't the capital, but it's a major city in New Zealand. I think Queenstown might be where I flew into. Um, but I really, really enjoyed New Zealand, and it's a beautiful country. I mean, beautiful. Just driving down the highway, I was going and on. It's so green and so pretty. I went to Hobbiton. That was a lot of fun. I went to the Blue Cave. That was a really nice experience as well. The people are extremely friendly and welcoming. The indigenous people as well as the other people I found to be very kind and very friendly. Because I've been other places like Hawaii where the indigenous people, and I understand why they're not friendly, but they're just not friendly. And I found that I found indigenous people in New Zealand to be really nice. And they have a really interesting museum in Wellington. It's right on the water. Wellington is a city that's right on the water, and it's really lovely. It's a beautiful place. I really enjoy being there. I think I was there for like a week. Auckland. Is the capital of New Zealand really Wellington? I don't know why I thought Auckland was the capital. Auckland is where I went. I flew into Auckland. I don't know. I didn't, for some reason, I thought it was Auckland. But maybe it is Wellington. It is Wellington. Well, Wellington is very nice. Auckland, not so much. I didn't care for Auckland. So I have them mixed up. I have a friend that lived in New Zealand. So I flew into Auckland, and then I went to Rotorua, and then I went to Wellington. And for some reason, I thought, so I'm incorrect, I thought that the capital was Auckland, and I did not love Auckland, but I really enjoyed Wellington. Really, really liked Wellington. Yes, Auckland is a very urban area. I will definitely say that that is true. And I did not care for that part of it. But New Zealand is far, far away. When they talk about a land far, far away, I feel that they're talking about New Zealand. New Zealand is far, y'all. But I mean, that whole part of the world is far. So once you get to Australia, I actually went to Sydney first. Then I flew to New Zealand. Then I went to New Zealand. Then from New Zealand, I flew to Bali. And that was like 7 hours, 8 hours from Auckland to Bali. And then from Bali, I flew to Melbourne. And then from Melbourne, I flew back to Sydney and then back to LA. But I really enjoyed I enjoyed New Zealand overall. Auckland, I didn't really spend a lot of time in Auckland. I flew into Auckland. I did a tour that started from Auckland and then took me to Rotorua. And then from Rotorua, I flew to Wellington. But yeah, well, there's strategies that you have to put in place to do a 20-hour flight. There's a lot, you got to plan for that. And I did. Yeah, and there's things that you have to prep your body for even before you get on the plane. I flew from LA to Fiji, and then from Fiji to Sydney. And the long part of the flight was the 18 hours from LA to Fiji. And then Fiji is like a couple hours to Sydney. It was a long flight. I'm not even going to say it wasn't. I watched movies. I read books. I actually made a really great friend that I'm still friends with. She just happened to sit next to me on the plane, and we're still friends to this day. We ended up hanging out for the entire time we were in Sydney. We're both traveling solo by ourselves, 2 Black women, what are the odds? And we are still really good friends to this day. I actually went to her wedding last year. But she just was doing Australia. And then I went on to New Zealand from there. And she went back to LA, and we ended up hanging out actually when I flew back through LA. That was a really good trip. That's my first solo trip that I did that. That was a really good trip. But yes, New Zealand's far. It's a long flight. You want to go to that part of the world, drink lots of water, even before you get on the plane, start super hydrating before you get on the plane. And then you just keep drinking water while you're on the plane. Now they have those face masks. I would say put one of those on because your skin does get dried out, and walk. Get up every 4 hours and walk and move yourself around. Do not sit for more than 4 hours. Make sure you get up. That, which is why drinking water is important, because drinking water will make you go to the bathroom. And that's important on that kind of flight. And wear compression leggings. I wore compression socks and compression leggings because I was serious about, I'm not about to throw a pulmonary embolism on this flight. So I made sure I got up, but I also wore compression socks and compression leggings on that flight. And I got up and walked a lot on that flight. So did my friend, because she's a nurse. So we were both like getting up, taking turns walking, because she was sitting in the middle and I was sitting on the aisle. And I sat on the aisle. I usually sit at the window. I sat at the aisle for that flight. You know, my late mother was a nurse. So I'd done my homework. So I sat on the aisle so I could get up. And so also I could stretch my legs out in the aisle if I needed to. And also so that I could easily get up and walk. Like I walked like to the back of the plane and then all the way to the front and then back. It's just really important. And I did it multiple times on the flight. So like watch a movie, get up and walk. Watch another movie, get up and walk. You know, read a book, start reading a book, get up and walk. And I had my clock set to like go off every 3 hours so that I could get up and walk. So that's a really important thing to do if you're going to be on a flight like that, because it is long. There's no question. I mean, there's only so much sleeping that you can do. And then you just have to get up and move yourself around. And so it helped that I actually ended up sitting next to somebody that was cool, because we ended up talking a lot on the flight. And then we ended up hanging out together. When we both got to Sydney, we ended up hanging out for the whole day so that we wouldn't be jet lagged. We hung out for like half of the day together so that we wouldn't get jet lagged, because that's also another key. When you get to the place, don't go anywhere near a bed. So when I got to Australia, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 in the morning or something like that. So I went to my hotel, I dropped off my bags, and then I went exploring, and I stayed out all day. And I did not go to sleep until about 7 o'clock or something like that. So I planned activities before I even got there. I had already bought me entry into, I think it was Taronga, the zoo. We did a tour and walked around the harbor and the opera house, and they have shopping and all that stuff. And we did all of that, went to lunch on the harbor, did all that stuff, just so that we could be up. Because if you go to sleep, then you'll be messed up for days. So like plan your first day out, plan to go on a tour, do a walking tour, do a food tour, do all of that for when you get there, and just have activities set up for you to just go. So get a decent amount of sleep on the flight, but make sure you're stretching and walking, but try to get 4 to 8 hours on the flight so that when you get where you're going, you can stay up for 8 hours until it's evening in the place where you're going. That's like the best way to get past the jet lag stuff, because you will be jet lagged. When I got back from that trip, was the worst experience of jet lag I've ever had in my adult life. Not going. When I was in Australia, I adjusted to the time difference fine. When I came back to the United States, particularly when I got back to the East Coast where I lived, I didn't sleep for days. Like I couldn't sleep right for days. It was really hard because I had to go to work. I mean, I think I took like 2 days off before I had to go to work. And then I would be in my job and just want to crawl under the table and go to sleep. And then I get home and be up all night long. It was horrible. So definitely that was hard. And part of it was hard was because what I did when I got to Australia, I didn't do when I got to DC, because when I got home, it was already evening. So I went to sleep. But once I got that one night of sleep when I got in, and after that, I didn't sleep for days. It was really, really rough. And partly because I had to go to work. So I didn't have time to like be home and readjust myself. I had to go to work. So I had to be up during work hours, and then I'd be exhausted. So as soon as I get home, I'd go to sleep, and then I'd wake up and not be able to go back to sleep and be up all night. And then you got to go to work the next day. So jet lag is real. Linda said, my son and I went to Tokyo and that stretched me. Yeah, those are tough. Thailand was also rough, but for some reason I was able to adjust better when I got back from Thailand, because I had certain things I had to get done the day I got back. So I was up all day and then go to sleep until my regular like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So that kind of got my clock restarting in the regular time zone. But Australia was really rough. When I came back from Australia, it was really, really tough. I've never been to Japan. I've heard really great things about it. My cousin, who I mentioned earlier, who's a blogger, she's whimsically Brit on social media. She's been to Japan multiple times. Her like pictures and videos are amazing. And then I have a nephew, my late nephew Dexter, who was a big fan of Japan, and he spoke Japanese, and he had gone to Japan as an exchange student. And we had talked multiple times about planning a trip to Japan, which we never got to do. He passed away actually 4 months after my mom. But he also would always talk about how wonderful Japan is. So I really would like to get to Japan at some point. I've been talking to Brittany about, my cousin Britt, about doing a trip to Japan because she's been to Japan. She said Japan is actually her favorite place in the world. Like how I love Florence, she loves Japan like that. Hard, loves Japan. So I definitely have heard really positive things about Japan. What country would you recommend for your first solo international trip? I'm biased. I would say Florence. I think Florence is one of the easiest places to go for a first time solo traveler because it's easy. It's easy to navigate. There's so much to do there. There's good food. There's attractive Italian men. There's museums. There's everything. There's rooftop bars. I mean, Florence just has everything. And from the US, it's not that far. I mean, you're flying to Italy, it's like 8 hours or something like that to Rome. And then you can fly directly into Florence, which is usually a little bit more expensive, or you can fly to Rome. You usually find cheaper flights to Rome and then take the train from Rome to Florence. So to me, Florence is ideal for a first time traveler. It really is. Like, I love Florence. Yes, everyone knows how much I love Florence. Another place I think is great is London, for the same reasons. Plus, they speak English. London it's expensive, but it's easy to navigate, lots to see, amazing museums. You get you some good West Indian food there. You can do the museum thing. You can also go into different neighborhoods. They have great shopping there, great brunch there, rooftop bars, activities for days. London is another place that I think is a really great first time solo trip. I have been to Bologna. It's lovely. I'm actually planning to go back, not on this trip, but I would like to go back to Bologna. Bologna is really nice. And it's an easy, short train ride from Florence. I was in Florence and I did a day trip to Bologna. So you could be in Florence and do a day trip to Bologna. You don't have to be in, I mean, I don't think Bologna is a place I would go for weeks or for a week or days or things like that, but I would go to Bologna for a couple of days. So Bologna is definitely a place that you can visit while you're in that area. Siena is also quite lovely, but it's a little bit further out than Florence and Bologna. But yeah, Bologna is pretty cool. It's a beautiful city with great food. Solo travel. I said Florence, London. Trying to think somewhere else that I think is good for first time. I enjoyed Split, Croatia a lot. Mexico City actually is a great first time solo travel destination. Mexico City to me is a first class city. That's another place that I think you could definitely go. If you like cities, Mexico City is another place. London, Florence, Mexico City. Danica said Mexico City, and Mexico City is a great choice. You notice I'm not saying Paris, and that's on purpose. Where else do I think is a great place for first time solo travel? I like Split, Croatia a lot. I like it better than Dubrovnik. I really enjoyed Split. Now, to get to Split is not as direct, but you can fly to Rome, and then Split is like an hour flight from Rome. And it was pretty inexpensive to fly from Rome to Split, but I think Split's another place. It's safe, it's lovely, it's pretty, the people are lovely, the food is great. Lisbon is nice, but Portugal is not my favorite. I like Portugal, it was nice, but I don't like the food. Y'all know how I feel about food. If I don't love the food somewhere, it's hard for me to love the place. if I don't feel like if I have not, I did not have good food experiences in Portugal. Anywhere in Portugal, I can't say there's anywhere I went in Portugal that I feel like I had a great memorable meal. But Lisbon is nice. In terms of safety and things to do. Lisbon is another place you could go as a first time where you've never been anywhere and you want to go international. Lisbon would be a good spot. If you're not a foodie like me, it's fine. It's fine. Everybody doesn't care about food the way I do. So Lisbon's a good choice if you don't care as much about food. I actually like Porto better than Lisbon, to be honest with you, though. I definitely like Porto more. I am going back to Paris soon. I'm about to give Paris one more chance. So I shall report back on whether my opinion on Paris changes after this visit or whether it is cemented in stone. We shall see. But Paris is not my favorite. I mean, I've been to Paris and it was not my favorite. I didn't love it. I wanted to love it, but I didn't love it. Now, I didn't go by myself. So that might be a reason why. So that's why this time I'm going solo. I'm not staying for a long time, but I'm going. And again, I'm planning out activities and things that I'm going to be doing. It's going to be much more structured than when I went the last time. You're with other people. You kind of go with the flow. You do things as a group. So I'm giving Paris another chance. I shall report back. I did enjoy the south of France. There's a village called Ez. I loved it. It was lovely. The people were lovely. I had a wonderful experience. I would definitely like to go back to Nice. I love Nice. I've not been to Marseille. I would like to go to Marseille. But I loved Nice. I really enjoyed Nice. I would like to go back to Nice and then go to some places from Nice around the south of France. But I did not love Paris. The vibe, I just didn't love it when I went that time. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And I didn't love the food. And overall, I don't love French food. I've had French food. I've had French food that's supposed to be really great. I've had, French fine dining in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. I had jobs that allowed me to eat in really great restaurants all over the United States. And I've had lots of French food. And I've come to the conclusion, and I've made a reservation at another restaurant in Paris that was highly recommended. And I'm going to put down the coins, and we shall see. I shall report back, for better or for worse. But when I went the other time, it was nice. I went to that restaurant that's right at the Eiffel Tower that is very famous. And I remember telling the woman on the elevator from the Eiffel, I was trying to figure out how to get to the entrance because it's not very obvious how to get to the restaurant, even though it's like at the bottom of the Eiffel Tower. And she looks at me and she says, "Oh, that's a very expensive restaurant. You need a reservation." And I looked at her and I said, "Would I be asking you if I didn't have one?" And my cousin who was with me busted out laughing because she was like, you are hilarious. But I was like, what is she telling me it's an expensive restaurant for? I didn't ask her that. I just asked her where it was. But I digress. Anyway, that was a good dining experience, but I don't think it was. I was expecting something superlative that I would always remember all my life. I thought it was good. I didn't feel it was great. So I'm going back to Paris and I'm really hoping that I will have outstanding experience and I will come back and be like, I love Paris. Like everyone, I have so many friends. One of my best friends like absolutely loves Paris and sent me like a bazillion things to do in Paris. And I'm doing some of those things because I trust her. So I'm going to do some of the things that she told me to do. I'm going to a restaurant she told me to go to. And hopefully I will have a better experience. I went to the Versailles. It was lovely. It is quite beautiful. The Versailles was probably one of my favorite things that I did when we went to Paris. It's really beautiful. That whole experience, the palace, the grounds, it's lovely. But the overall experience, Germany. I've been to Munich in Germany. I have not. I would like to go to Berlin. Haven't been. It's on my list. I've been through Frankfurt, but I don't want to say I've been to Frankfurt. I've been through Frankfurt many, many times, but I've never been in Frankfurt. I never get out of the whole airport complex. So I can't say, even though I've been overnight there, I don't feel like I've actually visited. But Munich was nice. Now, the only problem with Munich for me was the weather. It was very London-like weather, and I had not done my homework. So I think we went from Paris to Munich, and it was August. Paris was warm, and then we got to Munich, and it was like in the 50s every day, and I had to buy a scarf and a sweater because it was cold. So I didn't love the weather, but I did enjoy the city. So I would say Munich is worth visiting. I did enjoy the city. Um, but the weather, it rained a lot, and it was August, and I wasn't expecting that. And then we went from Munich to Florence, and it was hot as hell in Florence. They were going through a heat wave or something, and it was August, and August is hot in Florence, and it was hot, but Florence was fabulous. But Munich was cold. So I would definitely say if you're going to go to Germany, check the weather of wherever you're going. Don't assume just because it's summer that it's going to be warm, because we were really surprised to find that the weather in Munich was kind of like wet and cold. I've never been to Provence, but I heard it's lovely. Barcelona, I think someone has been to Barcelona. I've been to Barcelona, but like I said, I don't feel like I should speak about Barcelona, because when I went with my son, we did not know the tricks of travel, and we ended up taking a nap, and we were just messed up for the rest of the time that we were there. So we didn't get to do a lot of things that I wanted to do, because we were just jet lagged and tired, and we only had a day there, and then we were getting on a cruise ship. So I feel like I would like to go back to Barcelona and visit for a couple of days, just to see whether I actually like it as a destination, because I feel like I didn't really get to experience it when I went the first time. So I think I'm gonna say good night. I think we've been talking for about an hour now. I hope that this has been a good topic conversation for you guys. Like I said, I'm getting ready to embark on some travel, so I'm not sure that we're going to have a tea time next week. I will try to do at least one while I'm traveling, and I'll let you know, where I am at that time, because I'm going to a couple different places. So I'll share more later, but I won't say that there will be one every week, but I will try to do one. I'm going to be traveling for about 4 weeks. I will try to do a live while I'm traveling. When I'm traveling, I really like to immerse myself in what I'm doing. And the time differences and all that stuff, I got to figure that out. But I'll try to do a live. It might not be at this time. It might be something in the morning rather than in the evening. So we'll see. But this was fun. It's always fun talking to you guys. But yeah, I'm gonna be bopping around soon again. So I just came back from a little jaunt to Puerto Vallarta. I went home to DC to visit for a quick visit. That was really nice. Checked out Baltimore. Don't sleep on Baltimore, y'all. I lived in DC for 20 something years, and I used to go to Baltimore, but I only ever went to the harbor, right? And Baltimore has a lot more to it than the harbor, especially now. And so I really definitely, if I'm in the DMV area again, I'm going to give Baltimore a special visit, because I feel like people are sleeping on Baltimore. People need to put some respect on Baltimore's name. Okay. Baltimore has its own vibe. There's lots of things to do there. Great restaurants. Don't sleep on Baltimore. That's my last word for this video. I really was pleasantly surprised. One of my best friends is from Baltimore, and I ended up meeting her there and hanging out with her, and I had a really good experience. And, Puerto Vallarta is my happy place. Y'all have already heard me talk about Puerto Vallarta. I had a really good time. I just felt like going to the beach for a couple of days. One of my good friends lives there now, and I wanted to visit him and spend some time with him, because I'm going to be traveling a lot. Starting this month through the end of the year, I'm going to be traveling. I got some trips. So I'm not sure. I wasn't sure I was going to see him the rest of the year. So I want to spend some time with him. He's one of my best friends. So I went to Puerto Vallarta, and I had a lovely time. And I think I put up some video content about my visit to Puerto Vallarta. So y'all know how I feel. If you're in Mexico, you want to go to a beach town, I highly recommend Puerto Vallarta. I've already said that. Annapolis is a really cool place. I've been to Annapolis a lot, but I just feel like I never gave Baltimore the same attention. And they have really developed their harbor, like all of their harbor, because Baltimore is surrounded by water, and it's really, really nice. It's really, really nice. They've got some really cool spots there. So definitely don't sleep on Baltimore. So I will, be seeing you guys. Pray for safe travels. I never take any of that stuff for granted. I'm gonna be bopping around a lot. I'll let you guys know, where I've been, what I've been doing, and I will try to do at least one live while I'm in Europe. You guys have a good night. Take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of the week. And I'll see you guys at the next tea time. Bye.